Hello and welcome to today's webinar, How to Gain Visibility into Remote and Hybrid Team Productivity. This event is brought to you in partnership with Activtrak and produced by Activtrak Media. Thanks so much for joining us on this special webinar event. We've got a really fascinating topic for you today and a really timely topic as well, because I know so many companies out there are working with hybrid teams today. And, just how to figure out who's doing what's going on, it's a real challenge. And on this event, you'll see a solution firsthand for yourself. We've got a live demo, so you don't want to miss that. Before we get started, we've got just a few things that you should know about the webinar. First off, my name is David Davis, and I'll be serving as the moderator. As always, here at Activtrak Media, we want these events to be educational, and we encourage your questions. You can use the questions pane there in your audience console, and we will be doing a Q&A session at the end of the event. We also have our best question prize. I'll talk about that here in just a moment. I also want to call your attention to the handouts tab. There's a special link there to the Activtrak website for a free trial of the Activtrak solution. So make sure that you check that out. You'll be learning about that solution here on the webinar. And then finally, at the end of the event, we've got our Amazon $300 gift card door prize announcement. I'll be announcing the winner of that on the live event. If you're watching this on demand, of course, the drawing has already occurred. The prize terms can be found right there in the handouts tab as well. And then, as I mentioned, we also have our best question prize. This is for another Amazon gift card, a $50 Amazon gift card. The catch here is you got to ask a question to be entered into that. And of course, also meet the Activtrak Media prize policy. After the event, we'll go through the list of the many questions we receive and select what we think is the best question, and we'll contact the prize winner of that gift card then. So with that, it's time to get started learning about how to gain visibility into remote and hybrid team productivity with our expert presenter. I'm excited now to bring on Mr. Mark Allen, head of customer experience at Activtrak. Mark, are you with us?
I sure am, David. Hi there. Good morning.
It's great to have you back on again, Mark. Take it away.
Great. Thanks so much. And thank you, everyone, for joining with us here again today to get started talking about how you can gain visibility into both your remote and your hybrid workforces and what kind of productivity those teams are putting together. So I want to make sure that we're just kind of setting the stage here for everybody a little bit. We're going to start with a brief introduction about who Activtrak is. We're going to move right along into some of these new realities that are shaping not only the way that we're working today, but the way that we foresee all of us will start working in the next 3, 6, 9 months and so on. We're going to talk quite a bit inside of the product itself about how you set metrics and insights in order to be able to really understand what your team is working on, how they work efficiently, how they collaborate with each other, and things like that. And of course, we're going to have time for some questions and answers too. So first, a little bit about Activtrak. Activtrak helps organizations work wiser. And so we do this with a variety of different ways. We have a workforce analytics platform that begins by simply installing a very lightweight, discrete agent on the computer of your employees. That agent then goes and collects all sorts of activity about, what applications are used, what websites are used, for how long, what title bars look like, and those sorts of things. And that's at the raw data level. Now, what that means when you bubble this up is that we're going to provide meaningful insights into how you can measure productivity, setting goals for your employees, for making sure that they're spending the right amounts of times in the right tools, and even at the right time. There's even use cases that have began to emerge that we didn't even think about initially when we launched Activtrak way back in 2012. And one of those is this recent, awareness around assessing who is at risk for burnout. And so Activtrak can help you identify employees that are maybe overutilized or possibly underutilized as well. Same thing applies with all of these applications that you and your organization are spending a lot of money on, we can help you to identify some possible cost savings there for those underutilized apps. And so I'm really excited to talk to you all today about this and walk you through exactly what our product looks like. Now, clearly, there has been a revolution in the workplace over the last 12 months, and it's probably been coming even longer than that. But some of the things that are out there that we all understand now, when, and these are various different sources coming from Gallup and from Gartner and PricewaterhouseCoopers and others. And you can see the stats here on the screen just as well as I can. But effectively, work has changed, and many leaders have begun to start planning for that with return to office plans or working hybrid plans. Various different policies are beginning to roll out. Now, things may change again here for us shortly, thanks to the Delta variant that's going on with COVID right now. And who knows what the future may hold. But certainly one thing is clear, and that is that company leaders have began to plan for some amount of at least hybrid work, if not fully 100% remote. We know that employees that are maybe burnt out are very likely to start looking for a new job. And so if you don't have an employee that's physically right in front of you, who you can interact with every day, or you can see where they're maybe getting frustrated, or see where, various different obstacles are forming for them to get their work done, it can be really difficult to retain and not to burn out those employees. And same thing is true with app proliferation. If you're not measuring it, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to have any sort of sense or gauge for which applications are being utilized. Now, certainly many of us can go into the SaaS applications that we have, and you can pull all sorts of downloads and metrics and recorded statistics on how that app is getting used. But actually having visibility all the way back to the employee to understand, well, Bob uses Excel at this time, or Peggy uses, Salesforce.com this much during her day. Those are the sorts of insights that tend to be one of the missing gaps for a lot of managers and upper, executive management who maybe make these decisions about SaaS applications. And so one of the other use cases for Activtrak is that we can help you to identify which apps are being used and which ones are being underutilized, and be happy to show you guys that here really, really shortly. As far as distractions go, I think we all are very familiar with distractions, whether it's in the office with coworkers coming up and doing a walk by, or whether it's being at home and being interrupted by kids or dogs at the door, or, Slack notifications, Teams notifications, emails, whatever it might be. Distractions cause for businesses to lose a substantial amount of time, productivity, and of course, money every single year. And so it's our mission to help with all of these different things here. And in 2021, I think we learned quite obviously that the CIO's investments are not really going to change at all, given the dynamic of working from home. And as a matter of fact, if anything, they are now double committed to start enabling those employees from working from home, realizing that employees want to be able to work from home for a number of different benefits. They also understand that there needs to be a significant amount of investment made in order to secure the enterprise, in order to secure your intellectual property, in order to make sure that the right kind of compliance standards are being met for work from home policies. And so we understand that actually by 2024, about a quarter of all traditional large enterprise CIOs will be held accountable for digital business operation results. And they effectively are going to be becoming the COO by proxy, right? Now, those aren't my words. This is coming from Gartner and from their CIO survey from 2021. But certainly, we all know and expect that there's going to be an increase in the ability to work from home, the investments made in working from home, and ensuring that employees do have the right technology stack and the right things available to them to be successful in that. And yet we see that really everyone is rushing to go and get, various different point solutions. It's become very important to care about the employee experience. Understanding that how an employee is onboarded with their company, how they get access to information to do their job, what types of systems they have available to them. These are all very important now. And as a matter of fact, it's become a real priority for all C-suites that are out there that are paying attention to this problem. And that's even coming from Microsoft's Viva chief. And yet we know that while that challenge is taking place, we also are needing to see a higher level of collaboration. As teams are distributed across miles or states or even countries and working from each other, they're reliant upon tools like Zoom or GoToMeeting or Cisco technology or Microsoft Teams or all these various different technologies that we've all become very familiar with in order to see one another's faces, have conversations, share ideas, get feedback, iterate on our various elements at work. And so while everyone is rushing to go find those point solutions, the overwhelming gap is still there, which is, how do my employees work? How do they get things done? What tools are they using? What times are they working? Who are they collaborating with? So all of these can be answered and more with Activtrak, and we'll get to this here shortly. One of the questions that I do get often asked from our customers are, how do I assess workload balance? How do I make sure that my employees are, not only not overutilized, but perhaps those that are underutilized? Is there a way that I can distribute work? And the quick and easy answer to that is yes, there's definitely a way that you can do that. We also get asked quite often about focus time. So focus time is that amount of time that is needed to really rest in and work tightly on a singular topic or a singular task that needs to be completed. And with all of the distractions that take place today in modern society, we know it's really difficult to eliminate a lot of those distractions. And so there's no shortage of various different techniques or strategies that you can use, things like muting all your notifications or closing completely out of some applications that cause you to be highly distracted and those sorts of things. Knowing that on average, it takes about 23 minutes to get back on task once your focus has been broken. And so managers are desperate. They are looking for ways to try to eliminate distractions, increase focus. And what kind of tools and technologies can they invest in order to make that a reality? So these are some of the questions and some of the challenges that we are certainly seeing. And I'm sure many of you have seen these plus a whole lot more. Now, at a high level, how Activtrak works. There's basically three major components, and I'll even add in this fourth one here as a bonus. The first thing is you've got to have this agent deployed to users' computers. And so that's the very first step. Now, I'll cover all of the various different ways that we can deploy the agent here shortly, but the long story short is whether you're on a Mac, whether you're on a Windows machine or a Chrome OS device, we've got you covered. Once this agent is deployed, it will immediately start collecting this information and start uploading it back to Activtrak's secured cloud. Now, at that point, that data is analyzed and visualized for the managers so that what they're greeted with is just a simple dashboard with charts, graphs, and even some really vital coaching recommendations about what you should do. We can even begin to get preemptive with understanding, hey, we see an employee here that that maybe normally works 8 hours a day. Last 2 weeks, they started working more like 5.5. There may be something going on there, right? These kinds of insights paired with the manager's intimate relationship with their employee, knowing how their employee gets work done, can really help to build that bond that is necessary for the right types of coaching activities to happen at the right time. And then importantly, I think employees who have this information available to them, they can actually take charge and make these changes on their own. They can even see their own opportunities for improvement. Certainly being able to subscribe to these reports and having them delivered in your inbox, maybe every day, maybe every week, or however often you and your manager decide, that can really help to instill some insight into that employee and help them maybe regain some focus and get back on track, so to speak. So we'll walk you through all of that here as well. Now, before we go too much further, I do want to just pause and talk a little bit about how we think about time spent in front of the screen specifically. So there's a few different categories here that you can see the definitions of. And these are the metrics that we kind of have built our product around. So one of them, of course, is the amount of productive time. And this all really stems from the very bottom bullet, if you'll look at that for me, which says app and website classification. So we do give you a head start. We classify thousands of different popular apps and websites for you. And you always retain the ability to customize those categories. So if something is a social media tool and you want to call it maybe something else, you can certainly do that. You can call a certain type of website or application a design tool, that sort of thing. You can even make it productive for one person, but maybe not for another. So there's a variety of different things that we can do here, but it all starts with the classification of these activities. Once these activities are classified, we're going to display this information in terms of whether it's productive time, whether it's you were efficient or not, how focused that employee was during that time, if there was collaboration taking place, and even if there was a high degree of multitasking. I think the last couple of years it's come out quite often that multitasking is a bit of a myth compared to what we thought it was. Now, you could get really semantic about it, I'm sure, and some people might say, well, I multitask all the time. I'm listening to you and I'm checking my phone or I'm responding to an email right now. But when we're talking about multitasking and how it really is affected, we're talking about if you're doing a normal workday task and if you're constantly having to flip back and forth between tabs or different apps. So it's not so much about what can you actually do with your output of a multitasker, because we know most humans just generally aren't very good at it. But what's really driving this number is more about how many steps are required for the employee to actually take to get a task done. If I've got customer service managers that are having to click on 15 different screens and check 5 different applications in order to service a customer, that's obviously not very efficient. If we can streamline that process down, they can be much more efficient, much faster, less mentally taxed, and more capable of dealing with their customer in a highly proficient and highly competent way. So these are a little bit of the definitions here. We'll jump right on into the product in just one more moment, and we'll kind of see how those definitions are certainly used. But I just want to drive home that this single platform with Activtrak, it allows for you to manage your workforce. It allows you to get that visibility that you need to see about what employees are doing today and where we can maybe make some improvements. Allows for you to really manage productivity and optimize those processes like we've talked about. It also allows for you to focus on the employee experience by understanding their engagement level. So really, it uncovers those opportunities for you to maybe even redesign that employee's workday to make it the best possible working experience for them. And then with the setting of benchmarks and goals, this will allow you as a manager and the employee to come together to set meaningful baselines and to try to improve over those baselines over time. If you're not measuring it, can't really know if you're improving or not. And of course, organizations always want to be able to streamline, save money where possible. And so understanding what technology is available versus what's getting used is super important. So understanding our technology usage is vital. All right, guys. Well, let's move on into the demo piece here. So I'm going to share my screen. And
Looks good, Mark.
so this, great. Thanks for that, David. Appreciate the confirmation. So this is the Insights Executive Summary page. Within Activtrak, again, we see a number of different users that come in. One of the things that you'll see over here in the upper right-hand corner is we've got 45 people reporting into this instance. But for the purpose of this page that I'm showing, we actually are only focused on one team, the account executives team. Now I could go and find multiple other different teams like the customer success team, human resources, the sales team. I could check all of these and this would update those values. But at a quick glance, this is going to show me some indicators. So this is going to show me, total amount of time spent on screens across all account executives over the last 7 days. And you can see it's 6.7 hours. Well, the good news is 99.5% of that time was actually spent being productive, so doing productive activities. And of that time, almost 4 hours of it was focused. And so focus, if you'll recall, that's really about staying in a singular application, not doing frequent tab switches, not doing frequent application switches, and that sort of thing. As we move over here, we see the productive hours in a day, which we got over earlier. And we can also see things like the amount of focus efficiency as well as the week over week change. So what this tells me is that over the last week or so, my team's actually been slightly more focused. 1.8% may not seem like a lot, but if you've ever read Atomic Habits or other books like that, just knowing getting 1% better over time, just those incremental improvements do begin to compound and they do begin to add up over time. Now, speaking of time, that's why this is so important, is being able to see the last full quarter, the last 12 complete weeks of your team's productive and focused time. And so we can come in here and maybe look at previous weeks. For example, on the 5th of July, we see that there was a little bit of a dip in focus and a little bit of a dip in productive hours. Maybe there was a work event that took place, maybe a big announcement, maybe it was just the beginning of the quarter and everyone was kind of relaxing a little bit. So these things can be very helpful, but then as we start to scroll down, we see other really great indicators, including workload balance. So this allows for us to track the percentage of users that trend by utilization level. So over the last week back to 2 weeks ago, we actually had quite a few employees that were overutilized, meaning they were working more than 8 hours in a day. And that can clearly cause some burnout. Now, we also know that there might be expectations there. This is where it comes in for a manager to have that really good understanding of what their employees are doing. So the manager may understand this and say, it's end of quarter. I've got a sales team. This is the account executive team I'm looking at. They were just wrapping up their quarter. That's why they were overutilized. They were really putting in long hours. That's kind of to be expected. What's important maybe to that manager is that there's no overutilization that's taken place in the last 7 days. So maybe the team's settling back into the routine, starting the new quarter off, and being a little bit better about their time and not spending too much time after hours. As we move over to activity trends, we can see things like the allocation of time spent in those sales tools. And we can see that the team over the last 7 days, they've spent about, 2.1% more time in their sales tools. Again, that's probably an indicator of people are ramping back up. The quarter just ended. They're getting back into Salesforce.com. They're getting back into their various different CRMs and other applications in order to manage those leads and get back up to speed. You can also see very clearly that we had far less meeting software usage during this time. To me, that probably again tells me, well, less meetings going on at the beginning of the quarter for the sales team. This is to be expected as well. So a lot of insight that can be gleaned just from this one dashboard. And we've got a lot more where that came from. One of the other ones that I really enjoy seeing is the workload balance dashboard. And so this workload balance dashboard will allow for me to, at one quick glance, see where every one of my users over the last 7 days currently is. We can see we only had one day where people were being overutilized, maybe one day where people were underutilized, and 2 days or so, or 63%, so 2 days out of 4 days, where people were spent in that nice, healthy range. So I can come down and get a quick understanding of everybody and see, okay, Dan's looking pretty good. He's working a little bit long on the hours, but maybe that's still within our healthy range according to our benchmarks, which, by the way, are something that you completely control. So we'll make the recommendation, but as a manager, you can actually set those benchmarks on a per user, per team basis. And maybe we scroll down a little bit and see 40 and Jack. They haven't spent quite as much time. Might be that, hey, they've got something personal going on. Maybe they've had some vacation time. Maybe they just need to get back to work. Whatever it might be, these are things that can be discussed between the manager and the employee. Now, the trends section of the workload balance will allow for you to really see the utilization levels over time. And again, same sort of thing that we saw earlier. So we can see, on a week by week basis, who's overutilized, who's in a healthy range, and who's in the underutilized range. One other feature that's really popular and a lot of people like to see is understanding the average breaks by day of the week. So this is pretty specific, but it's nice to be able to come in and just be able to see, hey, Thursdays, those tend to be the days where people take a lot of breaks, averaging about 21 minutes, so maybe more breaks, but fewer or less time spent on those breaks, and just kind of getting that sort of insight there. Another key piece of the Activtrak solution is all about technology usage. And so as this loads up for us, this will actually show me where my employees are spending their time in which applications. So we do have the categories assigned already on the left-hand side, and you can see that quite a few of my account executives have spent a lot of time in the sales tools, as expected, a lot of time in email, a lot of time in Office applications too. But then as we go to top websites, you can also see that there's a tremendous amount of time being spent in Salesforce, in Google, maybe in Activtrak, our solution itself, and a few other different apps as we scroll down. So again, really understanding ROI, what tools are useful, which ones aren't. Seeing LinkedIn right here, that's great. That may indicate that there's a high level of interest for maybe the organization providing a LinkedIn Navigator premium subscription to the sales folks, that sort of thing. These kinds of decisions can be reached by understanding these metrics. And then one last thing that I do want to share with everybody before we jump over to maybe some questions and answer everyone's questions here live is the Personal Insights dashboard. This is my favorite dashboard to really understand what people are doing. So we're going to move away from that user. We're going to go to Kayla. Kayla is one of my heavier account executives. She's always working really, really hard and providing a lot of results. What this does is this allows for both the manager and the employee, Kayla, to be able to come look at a glance and understand how her day has been going, generally speaking. So we can see that on average, last 7 days, again, she has spent about 8 hours a day in front of the screen. She's been 99% productive. And, focus time is about 3.7. We could see that maybe that's a little bit less focused than where we would like to see her. However, she's also highly collaborative. She's a little bit more collaborative than the rest of the organization. Now, when we say collaborative hours, if you'll remember that sheet that I had shown earlier, that is the amount of time that is being spent inside of meeting applications or Teams or Slack or anything where you're sharing documents, sharing files, sharing ideas back and forth with each other. Scrolling down, we can see her weekly averages, the daily view for productive, focused, and collaborative hours. And then we can also come in here and start to understand some pretty interesting things. So, for example, we can see that there are apps and sites that are affecting her focus. One of those is Salesforce. Now, Salesforce also tends to be one of the most frequently used applications here for her. So clearly, she's doing multitasking to the degree of about 6.8 hours per day. This represents to me over 348 different attention shifts in the last 7 days that has taken place with Kayla. To me, a solution for this potentially is to go into Salesforce and to work with your Salesforce administrator on providing a better employee experience. There's probably multiple pieces of customer data that are available in other systems that Kayla's going to right now to go retrieve that information. But if we put it right inside of Salesforce, like we can with so many different integrations, then that could make a meaningful impact in her process. And it could make a difference in the way that she services customers and how fatigued she gets at the end of the day and all those sorts of things. So this is a really good opportunity for us to go and improve the experience for Kayla. And you'll notice too on the right-hand side that we have a number of pieces of guidance. These come in and out dynamically. They come based off of our productivity labs team, who their sole job is just to study how people can be more effective at work and how teams can work better together. So there's even some focus tips about blocking out time on your calendar as focus time, turning off or muting notifications, creating plans at the start of the day to help you adhere to your objectives, and so on. As we scroll through, we can see additional work habits week over week. We can see her general progress kind of scorecard. So she's utilized at a healthy rate. She's been overutilized maybe 2 days in the last week, so that's something to be aware of. She hasn't been underutilized. She generally starts her day early at 6:30, ends her day at about 4, takes about 2 breaks a day on average for about 32 minutes each. So a lot of insight that can be gleaned right off the bat. And to be honest with you guys, we haven't even scratched the surface. There's a whole lot more available inside of this product. One thing that I want to let you know with Activtrak is it's important to us that you're not just using the tool, but that you're also interacting with us. And so to that degree, we do have several different resources that are always available for our customers directly inside the app. One of them is this nice learning hub, which will actually give you an Activtrak coach, and it'll allow you to kind of have a walkthrough for being onboarded directly inside of the product here. The other thing that is really great to know about is our world-class support. So every single experience within the application includes this chat icon in the bottom right-hand corner. We won't send you too many chats to annoy you, I promise. But if you ever need to talk to a human being, you can just send us a quick message. And our typical response time is actually less than 2 minutes to talk to a human being. So very, very fast in doing that. Now, if employees want to sign up for any of the reports that we've covered, you can actually subscribe them directly using the subscribe button. You don't even have to make them a user of the app to give them a login. You can just simply provide an email address, how often you want them to receive that page, what time of day, that sort of thing, the format, and you can save that, and they would receive these meaningful insights directly inside of the app there. So with that, I want to just maybe draw your attention to a couple of different resources. So many times, one of the questions that I get from customers is, hey, this is all great, but I'm not quite sure. How do I maybe roll this out to my org? How do I introduce the concept of Activtrak? This is a common question. the four tenets of it are basically this: we always advocate for you to be transparent. Tell your employees what you're doing, tell them the purpose of it. And we've got multiple resources available, including PowerPoint decks and all sorts of other things to actually communicate this to your employees. The second thing to know is that protecting the employee's data privacy is paramount to us. We've paired with Google's cloud platform, who is obviously one of the most secure cloud platforms in the world, to ensure that data privacy is taken very, very seriously. The other part is just to be very clear in your communication about what information is being collected and what private information would not be collected. We do have multiple ways to exclude private information from actually being captured by the Activtrak system. And then the final important step here is to really share productivity insights. And that's where that subscribe button comes in. Is, again, if you can share these meaningful insights with the employees, then they can understand their own workday themselves. They can understand how they, maybe where they stand with the rest of the team, and it's just a better experience for everyone. So we do have some resources here. Happy to share that with everyone towards the end of this call. And this is part of that resource kit that I was just talking about. So it includes a messaging guide, a checklist, slide templates, email templates, FAQs for the employees, all of that great stuff. So with that, David, I know we've got quite a few questions, so I want to turn it back over to you so we can get to some of those questions here today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great presentation, Mark. Great demo. I really enjoyed seeing that. I know the audience did as well. While we take some questions, I just want to bring up this resource slide here for everyone out there and call your attention to these Activtrak resources. We've got the activtrak.com special URL right there on the top. You can click on any of the URLs here on the slide. If you just mouse over, you can click, it'll open a new browser tab or window. So, make sure that you check out these resources. And with that, let's go to our first question. First question I see they're asking is, what department do you typically suggest enforce Activtrak on workstations? Is it HR? Is it IT? Is it the CEO? How does that typically play out?
Yeah, that's a great question. Usually there's at least one person that is kind of the project manager, the project overhead of it. And in my experience, it does tend to be from one of those organizations, either HR or IT. Going back a little bit to being transparent, it's actually our recommendation that it come all the way from the top. We've had several different customers of which I've talked with the C-level, suite of a leadership team there for the companies. And so many times this is coming from the CIO or from the CEO. If that's a possibility, I think that's great. I think the more people that can talk about this openly with the organization, the better off you are. That being said, I think it's going to be across collaboration. I think that HR tends to kind of own the experience in a lot of ways, because they're the ones who are charged with owning the employee experience, right? But certainly IT is going to play a vital role in helping to deploy, helping to secure the platform, all of those sorts of things. So this will probably be a cross-collaborative initiative across multiple different parts of the org. But a lot of times I do see that starting with HR.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. Another question here, Christopher's asking, do you have any metrics about how employees feel about having this software on their devices?
I don't know if we do have metrics on it. That's a really interesting thought, though, and one we should probably start measuring. The feedback that we often get from companies that have deployed this is that shortly after deploying Activtrak, usually within 6 to 8 weeks, they do see an increase in engagement and at least a 10% improvement in productivity. But I don't know if we actually have one about their sentiment or how they specifically feel. Although I would say many employees, they may have an initial reaction to it, but once they understand, hey, I can see this data, I'm in control of it, I can have an open, meaningful conversation with my employer about it, I think it ends up being a benefit to everybody.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Next question. Adam's wanting to know when it comes to the data that is collected, how is that data typically backed up? Does it back up just like any other application, or what do you use to protect this data?
Yeah, great question. As an additional resource that we don't have listed on this page, I would recommend you go to activtrak.com/security. And we'll list out some of the high level things that we're doing there. For one thing, again, we do work with Google Cloud Platform, very secure platform, but that in and of itself usually isn't enough, right? We, Activtrak, are also pursuing SOC 2 certification. We do have detailed custodial records of who is able to handle your data and when. All data is encrypted, both in transit and in storage. And then the backup itself actually takes place in the cloud and only kept for a short period of time in case of disaster. All information is always available to you to download as an export via CSV, or we even have other add-on options where you can use Google's BigQuery and use SQL language to actually extract that data out and put it into other business systems.
Excellent. Very nice. Uh, Karen is asking, what sort of integrations are available between ActiveTrack and other existing applications?
Great question. So we have a feature called Active Connect, which I made reference to earlier. That uses Google's BigQuery to take the data and allow for you to combine it using business intelligence, platforms like Power BI or Tableau or Google Data Studio or others with any of your other business systems. Natively, we do have a Monday.com integration. We're working on some other exciting integrations too, so stay tuned for that. But at its core, all of this data is available via SQL extraction method right now. And so many organizations have found ways to integrate that, like with their calendaring system or HRIS systems or a variety of other types of business systems.
Very nice. And then next question here, kind of a three-part question. They're asking, does ActiveTrack see a proper balance of monitoring to provide sufficient information, but not to undermine employee trust or morale? I guess I'll start with part one of the three-part there.
Okay, appreciate it. Yeah, I think so. It is a bit of a balancing act, understandably. But again, I think being transparent really does help out with that. There are some methodologies too for ensuring that employee privacy is preserved. So, for example, if you have employees that are being monitored through ActiveTrack, you can actually set custom schedules either on an individual or a group basis to ensure that no tracking takes place during certain times. So you can have it such that 9 to 5 information is tracked, and anything outside of that, nothing is going to get tracked. There's yet even other methods that you can use to create like a personal operating system profile and then exclude that from being monitored as well, so that you could have an employee maybe log into a work profile and a kind of a home profile or a personal profile, if you will, and we would exclude the personal profile. From a morale perspective, again, I really think that many people find this to be a morale boost because you're able to see your data against your own teams, depending upon how you roll this out. If you choose to do it that way, so that you can maybe kind of see how you stand amongst others, and certainly just being able to have access to your own information, really, it doesn't surprise anyone when they come to find out that, oh, okay, the last 2 weeks they've averaged 9 hours of working a day or something like that.
Nice. And then kind of follow up to that, do you typically start with collection of critical information and then gradually increase the amount of information that's collected, or what's the strategy when it comes to implementing and exactly what to collect?
Yeah, great question. The default is just to collect, the agent collects what the agent collects. And so that is the default nature of it, meaning that you install the agent, and once it's on, it starts collecting titles, timeframes, URLs, executables, durations, all those sorts of things. What you can scale it back using some of those strategies that I talked about earlier with schedules and maybe personal profiles and that sort of thing. But right out the gate, it's going to collect, all activities that you do on a personal computing device.
Okay. And then what's the licensing or cost based on? Is it based on the number of users, the agents deployed, or the info collected?
Yeah, great question. The licensing is done strictly through users monitored, and so single individual, that is using a single computer would be one license. If you're in an Active Directory environment and you log into 4, 5, 6 different computers with that AD credential, we'll track it all just through one single license in that case as well.
Okay. Nice. And then next question, are employees able to access their own summary page to see what the company is collecting and perhaps how to perform better? I think you answered that, but maybe you want to elaborate.
Yeah, exactly. That is the whole intent of our personal insights dashboard, is to provide a single spot where an employee can get all of their meaningful information, their trend data over the last day, the last week, the last month or 3 months, however long you want it to be. And you can even subscribe those individuals to receive that in an email daily, weekly, or monthly.
Nice. And then Alex is asking, is the agent running on the user's computer load intensive?
It's not. It's very, very discreet and very lightweight. The way that I say it is usually Skype, Spotify, or Slack, the three S's that many people are familiar with. Any one of those apps is going to be taking up more network bandwidth, more CPU, and more memory utilization. So we're very, very low on all three of those. Network utilization, it's usually less than a half a megabit per second. On the CPU side, it's always less than 1%, and in memory, it's less than 32 meg.
Nice. Very nice. Can individual users remove the software, and does IT get a notification if they do?
We do have ways for IT to be notified through an email digest that will let you know when there have been software, uninstalled, or an agent that is no longer reporting. If a end user has administrative rights to their computer, they can install or uninstall any software, including the Activtrak agent. So that is one thing to keep in mind: is if they have administrative privileges, an employee could remove the software.
Got it. Okay. And then Paul wants to know, does Activtrak's coach resource a couple with engagement metrics, not only to monitor, but perhaps to incentivize uh, improving employee productivity?
Yeah, I think I get the gist of it. Yeah, absolutely. The coaching piece of it, it will not only show areas of improvement, but it'll also show you leaders. It'll show you people who have been, working within those healthy boundaries for the last week or the last month. It'll show people who are highly focused, and that can become something that's somewhat competitive. I've definitely known some customers that have had kind of unofficial competitions that have gone on to say, where teams have wanted to see if they can be more productive or more efficient than each other and that sort of thing. So gamifying it is definitely an option here with us as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like that. In fact, someone was asking about that. Is gamification possible? And is it used by many companies?
It is, yeah, and it's a growing number. The way that I see this is initially when companies first onboard, they usually just want to kind of know the very first few kind of fundamental things. When are employees working? What breaks do they take? Those sorts of things. Over time, they begin to understand more detail, like uh, how focused are you? Are you making a lot of context switches and that sort of thing? Can we plan our day a little bit more effectively? And so that starts to take place over time, including gamification, usually about a month, maybe 2, 3 months after first starting Activtrak. That's when people start to get interested in that, and it's had some really good results.
Very cool. I think you covered this one, but just want to clarify. They're asking, are you able to export Activtrak data for annual review packets?
Absolutely. You can export via CSV at any time, or if you subscribe to our Active Connect add-on, you can always programmatically go and extract that data via SQL language.
Nice. And then someone else wants to know here, um, is it possible to disable screenshots for specific users?
Absolutely. So we do not enable screenshots by default at all. And so you would have to actually explicitly go into the application and turn on screenshots for individuals in order to see those. So it comes out of the box ready to protect your privacy and keeping screenshots off. But if you feel like you need to turn that on for additional context or maybe even for investigations, that sort of thing, then that is an option for you as well.
Okay. And then they're also asking, how do I set productivity different from one group to another group?
It's a great question. Inside of the application itself, you would go over to Insights and then come on down to benchmarks and goals. And you'll see there that you have the ability to set it by team. So, a team in meaning a group. So, you could set it for, in my example that I showed previously, I think we were looking at the account executives group. I could have a goal of productive time and focus time for them, and I could have a totally different, goal for my marketing team or for my HR team. So that's all set within insights and in benchmarks and goals.
Okay. Interesting. Very cool. And then let's see, another question here. Can you give us an example of what kind of apps and sites can become auto classified?
Yeah, probably the 2 or 3 thousand most common by our customers. So that would include Google, Gmail, Office 365, Slack, MS Teams, the Office Suite, Salesforce.com. The list would go on and on here, but it's the really, really common apps, business apps that so many of us use. We will automatically classify those. We have based that classification off of the way that our 10,000 plus customers have classified them. So if customers suddenly stopped calling Salesforce.com a sales tool and suddenly started calling it a CRM, which is one way that it's viewed, then we would change that category for you automatically too. You do have the option to completely customize it, so you don't have to take any of our recommendations for classification. But we do classify those first few thousand based off of what's been popular across our 10,000 customers.
Nice. And then, yeah, I can see where that could be really, really helpful. You don't want to have to manually classify every application. So that's extremely helpful. Another question here. Can I vary app or website productivity settings from one group to another? Did you already cover that?
I think we might have briefly, but I'll just say it again for everyone's benefit. You definitely can. So a classic example of this is social media. Social media sites might be totally permissible for a PR team or a marketing team to use and to go spend time on in order to manage their social profile of the organization. It may not be that productive for an engineer, right? And so in the engineering group, you could say social media is unproductive. And for my marketing team or my PR team, it is productive. So you do have control over that on a per group basis for classification.
Nice. And then let's see, there's a question here about, can this work with terminal servers or virtual desktops?
Absolutely. It works really well with those. The reason I say that is because you only have to install one agent and we will pick up all of the profiles of that terminal server or virtual desktop. So great way to deploy this. Requires less agent installation, and it also will automatically track all users for you.
Nice. And then as far as the architecture for this, there's a question here. Exactly where is this installed? Is this a SaaS platform? Is it something you install on premises? How does that work?
This is a 100% SaaS platform. So this is all based inside of Google's GCP. We do not have an on-prem solution, but of course the agent is installed locally on the computers.
Got it. And then, so if folks want to get started with this, right there on the resources page, there's a link to create a free account and try this out. The same link is also there in the handouts tab if anyone wants to click on it there. And so if folks click on this, Mark, you want to talk us through here for just a moment exactly what happens?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the resources page, we've got the help center available to you. That is going to be your one-stop shop for any questions or technical questions about deployment, about where to get started, how to set goals, how to classify things, how to set alarms, all of that. The blog itself, that's going to be your resource for all sorts of thought leadership emerging from our productivity labs team about how to be a better manager, how to help eliminate distractions at work, that sort of thing. And then the resource center is just full of all sorts of white papers, webcasts, and other resources that we have done. So definitely encourage everybody here to check those resources out. If you want to get started today, you can click on the create free account at activtrak.com. Upper right hand corner, you'll see a new or a free trial link that you can click on. It takes just a couple of seconds to sign up for that, and you'll have your account provisioned instantly and ready to go.
Nice. And this is something that folks can even try out just to measure their own productivity, kind of as a test and to learn about it. Is that right?
That's exactly right. So when you start off with the trial, it's free for 14 days and has every feature unlocked in it. And then after that, it will revert to what we call a free account, which is great for understanding your own personal insights. That's limited to 3 users or 3 gig of data. So it's perfect if you just want to get started with yourself and maybe explore it for the organization later too.
Very cool. Yeah, sounds like a great opportunity to learn and get visibility into not only our own productivity but our team and really across the entire company. Something I know so many companies struggle with today with a remote and hybrid workforce. Mark, it's been really great having you on the event today. I'm afraid we're running out of time here in our webinar, but thank you so much for your demo and excellent presentation.
Hey, thank you, David, and thanks everyone for attending today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you to everyone there in the audience. Don't forget about the free link right there on the top, activtrak.com/ATM. It's also in the handouts tab. Click there to create your free account and try out Activtrak for yourself with the free trial. I'll just leave that up for everyone to check out those resources right on the screen while I announce the winner of our Amazon $300 gift card. This is going out to Leah Jennings from Indiana. Congratulations, Leah Jennings from Indiana. We'll reach out to you to deliver that gift card, and we'll also be reaching out to our Best Question prize winner after the event. Thanks to everyone who joined us on the event today. Visit activtrak.com for more information and to try out this solution for yourself. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.